Hey everyone, it's Braulio Rosa with the Broward Bar Buzz here, and we're back at Artificial Intelligence with my dear friend Josh Lida. Josh,
Hey everybody.
welcome.
Thank you so much.
So recently we've had all these issues going on with the movie studios and the actors, writers, animation, so forth. So let's get into just like the basics. So if you're an actor and they scan your image, what are the legalities on that? Who owns that?
So we're diving right into it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So there's a lot of factors at play here. Obviously, the strike is regarding to the unions, correct? So in Hollywood, typically when you film big blockbuster movies, most of the way that those movies are filmed, what governs the rights of all the people on set, the makeup people, the producers, are by various unions and contracts, the standard contracts. So they're fighting over a lot of different issues, but one of the issues is artificial intelligence. Because we're hearing mixed proposals. The actors are suggesting that the studios want to scan them once, pay them for one day of work, and then that's it. They get to do whatever they want with that image forever, the studios, I'm saying. Whereas the studios are trying to say, look, we're not suggesting that. What they've actually said is that they want to have it where there's consent required. So they can scan you and use AI for an individual feature with a residual pay scale for certain things, and then any other uses or anything that goes outside of that, they would need consent. We don't know what's really going on behind the negotiating table or how it's going to play out. But it's very, very interesting because we talked previously about this, but what you're implicating there when you're scanning someone's image is their name, image, and likeness, right? And that's a type of law. It's NIL. NIL is really a state-based creature. It's not there is no federal NIL legislation, although that is something that a lot of people are proposing. I don't know how that's going to play out, though.
All right, wait.
Yeah.
I want to jump in because you said it's a state-based creature.
Yes.
So let's say I sign this. I hire Josh Lida.
Mm-hmm.
He puts together this amazing contract that protects me so that I'll continue getting residual from all these different avenues that they're using now to put out these movies.
Yeah.
Suddenly, the company leaves California that has great laws and moves to XYZ state that has weak laws.
Mm-hmm.
Now what? Do the California laws play into that, or is it now state XYZ? You're in Florida. Maybe Florida doesn't have great laws that protect you.
So let's get back to your point. Let's get back to that contract that you were talking about. When you drafted the contract, what was the scope of it? Is it governing just this individual production? Is it a 3-production thing? Is it any use on a certain type of movie type thing? Do you have to get paid before each use is in place? Usually contracts will have choice of law provisions, and most lawyers watching this will be familiar with choice of law provisions because one of the first things we look for, those are going to be the laws that govern the contract going forward. Simply because the company moves to a different state doesn't in theory necessarily mean that the laws that govern that particular contract are going to change. So to your point, California, very, very famous for these types of laws, very strong for the person whose image is being taken for these types of laws. Florida, it's a little bit more loosey-goosey, to be perfectly honest. Usually it's limited to commercial purposes, and there are various exceptions, and the courts have kind of interpreted commercial kind of in a limited way. So it really is going to depend on the state that you're in. And to your point, there's a big filming industry in Georgia, right? There's big filming industries popping up in different parts of the country. So what we have here is we have various layers. Is the film production governed by the standard union contracts? If they are, then they have to kind of comply with the frameworks that they were agreed to by the parties. Then within that, what do the individual contracts say? And then within that, it's interpretation, right? Maybe there is an ambiguity in the contract and you want to disagree with somebody, right? Or you disagree with the studio the way that they used it. They changed a word that you said, or they made you say something that you didn't want to say. That's another interesting topic we can go down later. What if the AI that you've agreed to, they have you say something you didn't agree to say?
Yeah,
and it puts you in a bad light.
Exactly. Like suddenly, whatever it is, whether it's, I'm thinking politics now because it's so hot, but whatever it may be, it's just endorsing something that you don't support.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, once you give those rights away, again, we're going to look at the contract. But as a lot of lawyers know, just because something's in the contract doesn't necessarily mean it's enforceable. Maybe it's an illegal portion of the contract. Maybe it's just not an enforceable provision under the laws. So there's a lot of factors at play here. If there is ultimately a federal NIL statute that's passed, sparked by a lot of this AI stuff, I think we're going to see a lot of changes. But otherwise, it's mostly contractual arrangements and then state-based NIL claims. So it gets very, very complicated. And to your point, the individual issues are going to be different for someone of, let's say, Marlon Brando's level versus a background actor's level. The concerns of each of these people are going to be drastically different.
So we were talking before we started this a little bit about Indiana Jones, right? So, could they create a scan of Indiana Jones and use Harrison Ford to create a new young Indiana Jones and create a new movie? I mean, maybe that's a bridge too far, but I mean, you possibly could.
It may be a bridge too far, but they did use AI to de-age him. And I know that they've done that with other actors as well. I think maybe it was De Niro in one of the movies, Scorsese movie recently, they made him look younger. So then the question again, going back to the
Mark
original
Hamill,
point.
Luke Skywalker, and
oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
What was the show? The recent Mando.
Yeah, in Mandalorian.
In Mando.
Yeah.
Right? Luke shows up and Leia, young.
Right.
Which was kind of cool, actually.
I didn't see those episodes, to be honest, but it does. It was in the movie, right? Yeah. It raises a great point because once they probably, I don't want to make assumptions, but the contract was probably very limited in the language of what they can do with artificial intelligence. But as we all know, as a lawyer, when you're representing your client, you want to draft the language generally broadly so that you're protected in a lot of different circumstances. That's why you'll see language that says like from here, literally like from here throughout the universe, do we have these rights? Like you'll see that it's true. You'll see language just like that. And that's done to make it as broad as possible. So even when I was doing my research on the debates between the actors and the production, the studio representatives, part of that was arguments over ambiguities in the contract. Actors are saying, I only gave you limited rights to this AI, to the replica of me or to de-age me or whatever it is, and you're trying to expand it beyond the scope of the contract. Maybe the contract doesn't even talk about artificial intelligence at all. It just talks about technology, generally speaking. Artificial intelligence is technology. How broad can you expand that outward? It really is a slippery slope in terms of legal analysis here, and you do have multiple layers that you have to go through.
I mean, here's a crazy idea. So, just because I pay attention to the news, let's say an actor, and it's not going to be Harrison Ford or something, it's going to be, secondary guy or gal that they hire to do a Publix commercial.
Right.
And this person does the Publix commercial. They do one, it's a nice commercial, family, whatever, the holidays, they do nice commercials, right? And there was a big to-do with the owner or one of the people from Publix that they had contributed money to, I don't know.
One of the political parties.
One of the political parties.
Yeah.
And it was a big to-do. Well, now suddenly Publix says, hey, let's do a new commercial with that person or the movie actor or commercial actor endorsing candidate XYZ.
Right.
Could they do that?
Technologically speaking, probably.
Well, they could.
Yeah, they could.
Technologically.
Right.
What would be the legalities of that?
Again, I think the contract is going to kind of control it, but then that adds a new layer because if
curveball,
it's a curveball, right? Because like if it's associating you with something that you find to be unseemly or something that you find to be that you don't agree with, then maybe you might have a cause of action. I don't want to name any specific cause of actions because I'd probably have to think about it because it's you. It's like an image of you saying something you don't agree with.
The Purple Party candidate who supports
Right.
XYZ, and you're totally on the opposite side, right?
But then the question then becomes like, if it's not something that puts you in a negative light, it may be a negative light in your opinion,
Right.
but is it defamatory in the sense of it puts you in a light that qualifies you as a category of a defamatory statement where you can then sue for making it seem like I said X, Y, and Z?
I mean, like political candidates, I know of recent times political candidates, they come on the stage and they've got the music in the background, whatever it is.
That's a big thing.
And
Yeah.
I know there have been artists that have told candidates, you can't use my music.
Correct. But that's different. So because there is going to be copyright issues there. So when you use songs for certain purposes.
Far. I connected artificial intelligence with the copyright.
They are inextricably linked. And right now, I would suggest that. So we just had a very recent decision from a court dealing with whether or not a copy, and this actually does play into the studio strikes and why I think it's a little bit of a complicated issue for both sides, because basically you cannot get a copyright right now. You can't get a copyright on something created by AI. You need some level of human touch on it, basically. There was even that famous monkey case where the monkey took the picture, and they were trying to claim that there was a copyright there, but the monkey's not a human being. And we just had another court decision that echoes what the United States Copyright Office has been saying, that you need a certain level of human input or creativity or whatever the language is specifically to be able to accomplish that.
So, here, back in the day, Nat King Cole,
Sure.
he did that famous song, Unforgettable, right? We all know that, right? His daughter, Natalie Cole, did a new rendition of it, and she's passed since, but it was a beautiful song where it was a duet, her and her father. He, of course, was passed. You probably heard it.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, they're both brilliant. Yeah.
So what if, and in this case, it's family, so it worked. And I'm playing what ifs, but I'm having fun with it now.
It's AI. It's going to be all what ifs.
So what if there is a singer and he or she takes the avatar, and they've scanned in a person, let's say a recently passed person that did a song, and they do a duet with them.
So again, we're getting now to your point, we're getting into multiple areas of the law. So it's going to be the contracts that govern who owns what copyrights, and then it's going to be the individual whether or not they want to approve something, or if they don't approve it, is it a fair use? I would suggest personally, just sitting here with our made up facts, that if you take someone else's song and you do a duet with them without approval, it's probably not going to be fair use, particularly if you sell it or put it out there for commercial purposes. However, that comes down to the family when someone passes. So remember, with copyrights, it's the lifetime plus 70 years of the creator.
Okay.
So a lot of times when someone passes, the family, someone's designated the custodian, so to speak. I'll just use that as a word. Yeah, that governs the rights. So they'll in theory have the right to be able to license those old songs and say you can do a duet with this person, or we'll give you the rights for this. It's not dissimilar to sampling. It's very, very similar to sampling. But going back to AI, if you can't copyright the output of an AI, then the studios are put in a difficult position, because when they make a movie, they're making a work of art, correct? Or they're making a tangible expression, which is what a copyright is. If portions of it are created by AI to such a level that they're not copyrightable, how is the Copyright Office going to deal with that? Are you going to have to carve out the portions created by AI? Or is the whole thing still copyrightable regardless? That's a question we haven't reached yet. Okay. But it's really, really complicated, I think. I think that's something that a lot of people aren't thinking about. We're assuming the studios are going to want to scan all these artists and make everything with AI because then they don't have to pay anybody. But is anyone going to actually watch that stuff? Probably not. I would suggest probably not, maybe in my taste. And then is it going to be copyrightable? Because they need to be able to protect themselves.
Correct.
Right. So there's a lot of issues at play here. Contract-based issues, NIL-based issues, copyright-based issues.
Well, I would submit, just thinking, business-wise and how greed works. You still hire Harrison Ford.
Right, he's a star.
But all the background actors, like the two main actors, whatever, the small crew that are the main actors.
Right.
But everyone in the background, they're AI. Right.
Well, so again, I think there's an interesting counterpoint to this, which was very recently, I think it was Universal Music, just announced a big AI guidelines with YouTube, basically, where they're going to work together to try to figure out a way to allow you end users, so someone like you and me, to then utilize artists' songs and AI tools to create music. But they want to do it in a way where it protects the original artist. And I think some artists have already, I think Juanes was part of it, a couple others. They've already signed up to be part of this fact-finding endeavor to kind of work through it. And I think that's fascinating. If I'm a background actor and I get paid, I think it's like $150 a day or $300 a day, whatever they're arguing about, it's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you're there for 10 hours and you got, craft services and food and stuff like that, but it's a long day. And you're there in the hopes of maybe one day becoming a bigger star or something along those lines. Sure. There's only so many movies you can be in. If they work out a deal where there's a system where you can scan yourself and be leveraged as a background actor, however, you get to approve it, number one, and you get a residual or cut every time they use you, maybe it could then be a benefit. So there's two sides to every coin. I think I want to stress, I don't mean to go on a tangent here, but I really want to stress people are very quick to make assumptions on whether AI is good or bad, or whether what the studios are doing or what the actors are doing are good or bad. I think it's much more gray than that. We don't really know how it's going to play out. We don't really know that people even want AI-generated movies in and of themselves. Maybe they do. Maybe they will. I don't know. But right now, it's all a big question. So it is a point of view in how you look at it. Again, if I'm a background actor and I can only be in one movie a week or one movie a month and I get 10 days worth of work, it's a few $1,000s. Wonderful. But if I can multiply that by 2, 3, 4, 5x, even though I'm a background actor, maybe I'm making more money, and that's a way to look at it. But to make that feasible, you need protections in place that people aren't going to violate your rights, and that they are going to actually pay you, and that they're not going to have you say something or do something that you wouldn't want to do anyway.
So let's move to voice actors. Yeah. And I guess you could even extrapolate the voice from a movie or a screen actor. Because when you were talking about YouTube, let me go here. It was interesting. What was the name of that software? The art software that's
DALL-E that we were using?
Right.
Yeah, DALL-E and Midjourney.
So, could there be a voice one AI where they dump these different voices out there, and literally the Josh and Braulio production, we can just take all these different voices that are perhaps famous or somewhat famous, and create our own whatever we want, some kind of production, song or podcast or something with it, because they're out there already.
I believe someone took a bunch of Joe Rogan podcasts and created an entirely AI Joe Rogan podcast where he interviews himself. I don't know that that's accurate or what the specifics of it were, but I believe people have experimented with it. Technologically speaking, you totally could. We
create the Onion.
Yeah.
Podcast.
I think
spoofing people.
I think that it gets even fuzzier with voice, because again, a lot of the lawsuits that we're seeing with AI right now is a battle over whether or not you're allowed to train something on data that's on publicly available or on the internet. We all put stuff on the internet every day. Anyone can go see it. That's why we're putting it there in the first place. So is it illegal, or is it against some contractual right or a legal right that you have for them to train their AI on that data and then create something new? And those battles are being fought right now. I think that's where this kind of comes into play. If I'm a studio and I own the copyrights to all these movies, then I would argue I own the voices, the sounds of those movies. Why can't I train an AI on those sounds to create something new? And
you're such a lawyer.
And we were debating this before. Is the new voice that's actually coming out of the AI even your voice?
Of course it's your voice. It's an imitation of your voice.
Well, it's an imitation. There's not, in theory, you can protect your voice under certain states with the NIL laws. Again, going back to how strong is it? What's the specifics? Right. How commercial is it? Is it associating you with a product? All these kinds of factors. But in a vacuum where it's just the voice being put out there, is it your voice? This computer is putting out a sound that sounds like your voice, but it's not you saying it. So if I make that sound, but I don't say it's Tom Cruise or Harrison Ford, I just make the voice and I just use the voice, am I infringing anything? Am I violating your rights by training this AI on your voice on copyrights that I own, without saying, hey, by the way, this is Harrison Ford?
Well, by the way, then that goes back to what I had said. I mean, those people, their voices are out there a gazillion times. Yeah. So we could say, hey, and we could use Tom Cruise's voice for us to say, Braulio and Josh are awesome. You should listen to their podcast, or whatever. You can have people endorsing you.
I think that's a problem, because then you're getting into, I've endorsed this product or I've endorsed this show. And then therefore that may violate your NIL rights.
But you're not saying I'm Tom Cruise.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I'm just saying
you're just taking the voice.
You're just taking the voice, and you could just, it's a cheat. But you'd say, "Hey, I endorse Josh."
But that's the beauty. So that's the beauty of
if you don't use the name.
That's the beauty of the nuances. Right, exactly. But what value is that? What value is a random voice with no name associated to it saying, I endorse Braulio and Josh? Oh, well, this random person. Well, then again, maybe.
But people recognize the voice. Hey, this is, Arnold Schwarzenegger used his voice but you don't say it's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well, there was a case.
You could say it's your good buddy, strongman, whatever. Come up with a way that describes who it may be.
It's such a good law school essay question.
Like, hey, it's that guy that flies around at Mach speed. Whatever. Josh is the guy. Yeah, but you never
tell me
it's
more
Tom
about how
Cruise.
I'm the guy, please. Tell me more. Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, there was a famous case a few years ago where Vanna White, some company created a product and they had a robot in a dress similar to hers and hair similar to hers and the necklace. And it was like an endorsement of a product. She never gave approval of it, but it wasn't a human being and it wasn't Vanna White. It was a robot that sort of gave you the impression of Vanna White. And I believe she was victorious in that particular case. I'm not sure which state that was in, but it's again, that's where the state laws come into play and how the courts interpret it. Because that's sort of what you're getting at here, where we're sort of like elbowing, you're nudging them like, it sounds like Arnold, doesn't it? Arnold's endorsing us.
Right.
That gets into different things. So is the problem that you violated their NIL by simply using the voice, or is it the context in which you used it? Right. I think it's the context in which you used it.
Some kind of money or power or,
Or, I mean, you can even argue like a fraud. Fraud may be a strong word, but like you're insinuating that someone famous likes your stuff.
Correct. Which would then bring more people to listen to your podcast, which would bring sponsors, whatever, right?
But I would raise the question, and I'm not really putting forward an answer. I'm really not. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. Is the claim in that situation the fact that you use the voice generally, or is it the way in which you used it?
It's probably the way you used it.
I would suggest that's why I think it's very much a gray area, and we don't know how it's going to play out because we don't even know if people.
But the fact that we can now so easily,
we can very easily.
And whereas in the past you couldn't. Like anyone now could drop that voice or find some kind of artificial intelligence that would allow them to do that.
Well, in text to video is we have text to image, which you and I talked about. We're going to start having text to video very, very soon. I've seen images on Twitter of artists using it to create little snippets of artworks. So I think these questions are going to get raised because what if you do it unintentionally as well? So what if the AI is trained on what's available on the internet? YouTube is filled with illegal clips from movies and TV shows and all this kind of stuff. So in theory, you can be an artist. I don't mean to bring it back to the art, but art attorney. I am what I am. An artist makes a short film designed solely based on what they want to make, text to video. But the trained data was, I don't know, maybe it's based on Seinfeld. And so a lot of the actors are really reminiscent of Jerry Seinfeld or Julia Louis-Dreyfus or whoever it is. Who's at fault there? Is there an issue? Is it infringement in the first place? That's where a lot of these cases, I think, are going to dictate unless and until we get some sort of regulatory guidance from probably the legislatures. The U.S., the United States Copyright Office can only do so much with guidance on this. The laws are the laws. Copyright's been around since the founding of the country. It's an old system. It never could have imagined artificial intelligence spewing out content at a rate never seen before.
No. So here's, and maybe I'm off here, but we're talking about sampling music.
Yeah. Remix culture.
Remix culture, right?
Yeah.
And so you're allowed to do that, right? So you're taking sound bites from other people's music and putting it together to create a whole new
Sometimes you're allowed to do
art.
That. Usually, and nowadays, people try to get it cleared now so that there's less issues. Because then it gets into a big, heavy legal battle. Was it fair use? Was it not fair use? Was it transformative? Was it not transformative?
I wasn't sure where that was going. Because you could say that you could do the same thing with artificial intelligence.
Absolutely.
With even, you could create little commercials and you'd have different avatars that would just pop in for like 1 second and say one thing, and you'd have all these different avatars conveying your message.
Right.
And they're only for 1 second, just like that little sound from the music.
Right. Well, to your point, let's assume that these systems are ultimately allowed to train on anything that's on the internet because you're putting it out there and it's public and whatever.
Right.
I'm not saying that I think that that's what's going to happen or that's what I think should happen, but let's just assume for this fact pattern. If that's the case, then we're going to be focusing on the output. Is the output infringing on someone's rights? Is it infringing on their NIL rights, their likeness rights, or is it infringing on copyrights maybe of like an original song or a recording on TikTok? I know that sounds ridiculous, but let's say it's
some people have millions of followers and they're doing their little
And do they even own the data that they're putting out there? What's the terms of service say?
Right.
Can TikTok take them down? Can TikTok kick them off their platform? Can TikTok remix it for their own purposes? I don't know.
That's an interesting
And then,
point.
so that gets to so then let's say TikTok creates an AI. And I think Snapchat, I think Snapchat has an AI. And there was.
Snapchat has an AI.
And someone, like, it malfunctioned. And people thought it was posting images, like, of their room. Because it posted an image of like a blank white wall, and someone's like, "Why is it taking pictures of my room?" And then they were worried the AI was going rogue or whatever. There's a word for it, I forget what it's called, where it goes off of its training and it starts acting on its own. It was
Skynet.
Skynet, yeah, it's Skynet. That's the legal term, right? It's Skynet.
It's Skynet.
Yeah, I'm kind of jumping all over the place here, but that's why I think it's so important for people to kind of keep an open mind to how this is going to play out. Because as lawyers, it's fun to make assumptions and then assume that a court's going to go a certain direction. But we don't even know what the ultimate facts are in any of these particular situations. I think the situation where like an Instagram or a TikTok creates their own AI, and then people use that to create their own things, I think that terms of service is going to have a heavy factor in the analysis. And then again, where is the term of service based? Is it California? Okay, if it's based in California, did that terms of service violate in and of itself the NIL laws or the likeness rights laws? And then within that context, is this individual matter something that allows them to break the terms of service and say, hey, look, you violated my rights here?
Let's touch on something with all the bots. You're talking about social media.
Yeah.
And, bots have been a problem, and all these deep fakes. What is generally the responsibility of these? And I know we're going off, but it's still artificial intelligence. Let's say, and I'm sure it's happened already, someone creates a bogus video with a politician that they don't like, and they put it up on the social media, of course, having this politician say terrible things.
Right.
What is the responsibility generally of these media companies to remove that?
I think I would suggest that there is a responsibility to take it down, but I do think when it comes to the legality of that, it's maybe more debatable. There was a case I don't even know how it turned out, dealing with, some violent videos get uploaded to YouTube, and some of them involve like groups, right, that are organized groups that do stuff. And what was the rights and obligations of these media companies to ensure that they get taken down or that they're not recommended? That was the big issue. Is it in your recommended bar that this is coming up? And there's a big debate there. So I think this kind of falls under that category. However, if you complain to a big media company and say, look, that's not me, they're saying horrible things, please take it down, they'll, not always, and maybe the process fails, but in my opinion, they'll probably take it down. Generally, companies are more likely to take something down than they are to leave it up, because they'd rather, they want to be in a safe harbor. They want to make sure that they're doing their due diligence. If there's a challenge to it and it goes back up, that's different. And then maybe you have to sue. But I think that's a little up in the air, because again, we go back to it. If it's a politician saying something they didn't say, how bad is it? If it's a politician saying, I like hot dogs with ketchup on it instead of mustard, is that defamatory?
But
probably not. Although, I mean, that's pretty bad. That's pretty
just,
bad,
Just terrible things.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I said ketchup on a hot dog. That's pretty terrible. That's pretty awful. So,
are you a mustard guy?
I'm a spicy brown. Spicy brown.
Okay.
So, but again, like, is it bad enough to take it down if it's not defamatory? Is it violating your name, image, likeness if it's not connoting something awful? Maybe, but again, it's going to come down to the states and the specific laws, and then the terms of service of that website, and that's all these other
scary,
things.
Because people can create your likeness from everything out there, and then have you saying horrible things.
But again, if you're saying horrible things, then that puts you in a defamatory light. It's making you look like you're doing something you're not. So I think you have a cause of action. But again, if it's on the internet, on who? They'll probably
some guy in his mom's basement eating Cheetos puts together, some.
Maybe it's a Russian troll farm. How are you going to get at the Russian troll farm?
Right.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to. But that's where the media companies come in,
right.
And the media companies are probably going to get a lot of lawsuits regarding this until there's a system in place. So, like with the DMCA, right, the Digital Millennium and Copyright Act, for uploading, infringing material on these websites.
I don't even want to say like some of the things I was thinking, because God forbid someone just grabs that clip and puts you out there saying that you said this terrible thing.
Are we going to run this through AI?
I'm telling you. No, man.
I'm ready.
Could.
Am I an AI? Is this real? I don't know.
All right.
I don't want to keep saying it's so complicated.
Matrix?
Which pill?
Which pill?
It's very complicated because, again, to your point, who do you sue? Probably the media companies. And I think that's why the legislature and I think there are rumblings and they're trying to propose. I think even the executive branch, the White House, might have put out what they think guidelines or should try to push the conversation forward as far as AI is concerned. But there's so many issues to deal with. What we're dealing with AI is actually a very small sliver of what's to come.
Well, look at all we talked beforehand. And I think we've done this deep dive on all these other topics that we didn't even think about.
Yeah.
That just when I was listening to you, I'm like, well, what about this and what about that? Let me hit something that's important to Anthony. Dragon Ball Z.
Let's do it.
So voice actors for animated. I know we touched a little bit about it. So I believe the gentleman's name is Sean Schimmel that does Goku. Iconic voice, right?
It's very iconic. I definitely think of Goku with a very particular voice in America anyway.
Yeah. And so is that his voice? Or does the company own that voice when it's coming out of that character, animated character?
I don't want to give a lawyer answer, but if I'm the company and I'm paying you to record audio that I'm going to put into a video and put out there into the universe to get paid and you're going to get a cut of it, I'm going to say that I own, in this instance, that recording. Right. If I own that recording, then the recording is the recording and the sound is the sound. I can do whatever I want with it. I'm not saying that that's viable, but as a company, you can see that argument being made.
Because I could see, I guess, maybe not, again, the big name, the Mark Hamill's doing the Joker or whatever, but some of these some people who have great voices that we hear all the time in animation, but you don't know who they are.
It's true.
They could use those voices and then throw it in the AI mix, create, and now potentially use their voice for that character.
I think the guy that plays, who was the guy with glasses on King of the Hill with the hat?
I don't
Not Hank Hill. One of the neighbors.
I didn't watch that show.
Unfortunately, he just passed. He just passed away recently. One of these actors, iconic voice. If you like the show, all those kinds of things. It's similar to when an artist passed within a state. The rights to these copyrights, or to the voice, or to the audio, or to their likeness. Let's say that the state's laws go far enough to protect your voice, if your voice is well known enough and people can associate it, it then gives them an option to license it further. And it is a ability to then potentially make money down the road. But again, in that scenario, you want to make sure the proper protections are in place. That's why you need strong contracts. You need lawyers to draft the contracts. That's why you need strong contracts. That's why you need. Oh
wait, you can't use artificial intelligence to create your contract?
Well, that's a whole other podcast.
That's another day.
And I do think lawyers need to be concerned about that. I actually really do. I do think AI is going to have a humongous impact on the legal community in ways that we can't imagine. Maybe good, maybe bad. I don't know. But going back to this, it gives, if there's a copyright, if there's a likeness, like in Florida, I think it's up to 40 years after someone passes that their likeness can be controlled, or you can kind of dictate what people do with it and within certain scopes.
Sure.
So if there's a time limit on something and you're in a state that allows you to use someone's iconic voice, the Mark Hamill voice, for example, for the Joker, which is iconic, and you do recognize his voice for that, then the estate can, in theory, license it out. I don't see why there would be a limit on what they could do with it. Hey, you can run it through AI, or you can use AI to recreate, my family member's voice.
So that could actually be beneficial to the family members afterwards, the estate.
And and this kind of issue sort of already exists when a musician dies very, very young. A lot of times you get a ton of music released after the fact. There's a lot of moral questions there. Would the artists have wanted the music released? What's the value of the music being released? Why is the family doing it? Is it right? Is it close? Is it too soon? But those are moral questions. Legally, they probably have the rights to do it, which is why they do it, because they acquire the intangible rights, the copyrights, the likeness rights, whatever it is, under the laws, and they can draft contracts and they can agree deals and they can get paid for it. It's an asset. These are assets, and it's interesting because I do think we will start to think of humans as having these different assets. And even run-of-the-mill humans may be able to then license their voice or their face, or maybe you have such a generic face that you make the perfect background actor and you don't actually ever go act, but you just license your face and you get a cut every time they use you for background scenes. Again, going back to the background actors thing, like war movies. For years, we've had war scenes where not all those people are people, right? They're computer animated people.
Sure.
We never thought of it as being a problem in the past because it was a studio of people making 3D renderings versus a computer just doing it. So we do sort of have some analogs and some precedent to kind of analyze it going forward. I think people are just really worried about being replaced by machines, which is, I'm not going to say that that's a wrong thing. I don't really have an opinion on it. I think it's a valid concern, but it's all how you look at it and what you do with it. If I'm an estate of an artist or someone with an iconic voice and I want to keep their legacy alive, maybe it has nothing to do with the money. I just want to hear their voice more and I want to see that continue. Is there something wrong with them agreeing a deal to do limited to a movie? It's not a deal that says do whatever you want with it. It's just you can use it for this movie, and if we have an option for 2 more movies or 3 more movies or for audiobooks or for podcasts or whatever it may be.
What about, hey, I'm Goku, whatever, and I love Budweiser beer, or Coors beer,
I
or
think
Coca-Cola. Who gets that?
I don't know that you can have them say I love it because they'd be dead in this scenario.
No. Let's use a live actor right now. So like one of these animated iconic actors like Goku, right?
Yeah.
Sean Schimmel, for example. Could they take his voice and say, we endorse,
Probably not. He'd probably have to get approval from the company that owns the rights to the character. If the character is trademarked or
well, that's what I mean. That company, let's say that they want to endorse something. Can they? Using his voice now?
I have so many thoughts about this, and I can go in a lot of different directions. So you raise a lot of great philosophical questions. Again, they're using my voice. They have the rights to my voice for this character. The contract language.
So it's
so how
Goku that's endorsing. Hey, I'm Goku.
Right. It's not me as an individual. It's just my voice being leveraged for this character. Sure. Under the contract, do I have a right to maybe I have a right to the residuals under that. Or maybe they've gone outside my contract and they're not allowed to do that. And I'm going to sue under my name, image, likeness laws and say you can't have me endorsing somebody. But then again, we get to the court. Is it the individual endorsing it, or is it the made-up character owned by a corporation endorsing it?
Good question.
I don't know that I have an answer for that.
I don't know. Or promoting, like we were talking beforehand, like promoting a product.
Right.
That maybe I'm against, just morally or ethically, I'm against that product or whatever. And they're like, hey, I like whatever. I like cars that put out a lot of pollution, and I have an electric car, and I'm like, oh, Mr. Earth and everything.
So I think that comes down to what does the contract say, and then, but it's an endorsement. So if it's an endorsement, it's for a commercial purpose.
Yeah.
So are they using your likeness in a commercial purpose outside the scope of the rights that they've been given?
Yeah, Goku supports, the smog spewing car, or whatever.
Yeah.
Is it Sean Schimmel or is it Goku?
Right. All real Super Saiyans drive this vehicle.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. It's a really fine line. There's a concept in art which is like, I don't know that it quite applies here. It's like the death of the artist, where you kind of separate the finished product from and it's a philosophical thing, but from the creator. I don't know that it was meant for it. Usually it's about, can you separate negative individuals from the art they've created and enjoy the art separate from the individual? But here, once I do the Goku voice, or any voice for that matter, and it's part of that character, and maybe they just chop and change the audio. They don't even need AI. They just take previously. You could, in theory, do that without AI. You don't need AI to do it. It's just easier with AI.
Yeah.
Do they have the right to have the character endorse something? We've probably seen that in the past. I'm trying to think when I was a kid if we've seen like cartoons or someone endorse items or individuals.
Hey, this is Fred Flintstone and I.
I mean, Fruity Pebbles, right?
Fruity Pebbles.
So, wow, that's a really interesting one. When you think of Fred Flintstone, you think of the voice.
Saying Sugar Flakes.
Yeah, you think of the voice. So, am I associated? But do I know who that actor is?
Well, he was part of Warner Brothers. I forget the guy.
Right. So the Warner Brothers owns the character, and then they have the contracts that says they can do whatever they want to do and license it out and do with it as they please. So a lot of this is going to come down to the specifics and I know I don't want to keep harping on it, but it really is going to come down to the contracts and then the specifics of how it's being used. And I would even argue how the trained data was obtained, right? If it was obtained freely from the internet, maybe there was an issue there. If you're taking my voice, if I have a YouTube channel and that's how I got famous, and you're taking my voice from that YouTube channel, and then you're having...
Yeah, there's famous people on YouTube. Like, you could just grab, like, their voice and could we do things? I don't know.
It's really an open-ended question.
Because it's not protected. It's not like a TV show that has copyrighted, right?
Well, you could I would argue that a YouTube production is a copyrighted. I would argue personally. Okay. I'm sure there are lawyers that would disagree with me, and it's going to depend on the individual.
Right.
Copyright claim your videos.
You can, right?
Yeah. If they use anything.
Then you have a right.
Okay.
And the other thing that's interesting too is, like I said, I brought up the musician aspect, like the way music is handling it. There's this artist Grimes who is. I know her for her music, but a lot of people might know her because she was in a relationship with Elon Musk and they had a baby and all this kind of stuff. But she did something a few months ago where she gave her fans the opportunity to create AI music with her voice and samples, and they could register it through a blockchain and then in theory get paid on it.
Cool.
So again, going back to the writer's strike, which is where we started all this, I was thinking of another scenario like that. What if there's a website or a playground, so to speak, where you can take The Godfather, or you can take, Scarface, and these people. Classics. And we are in South Florida.
Yeah.
And you can take these things and create, write a script of a short film and use the actors only on this website, so it's not out in the world. But if I'm a movie studio company, is this a new way to discover talent? Is this a new way to generate revenue? Whereas if people like them and they watch these movies and it generates revenue, well, that's good for us. If the script...
don't tell anyone about this. This is our new ploy.
This is our new play. And we're putting it online, right?
We're
putting it, is it ours if we put it out in the universe?
Well, look, if you look at the movie industry, I'm no expert at it, but it's changing. People aren't going to the movies the way they used to. People are watching things streaming. Anthony, when I talk about Anthony, he doesn't watch TV. He watches YouTube and other things.
Yeah.
So it's a whole changing dynamic on how people consume information.
And the pie, and you can make an argument that the pie of money is shrinking a little bit because the way that we formerly made profits for the movie industry or for TV companies is kind of changing.
Right.
With it, as it goes to streaming, those contracts are different than they were in the past.
So to your point, which I thought was brilliant actually.
Oh, thank you.
Is I can see the industry even changing more and creating, there being more independent producers or directors.
Right.
People make movies or shows, whatever you want to call them, and they put them online.
Yep.
And they put them online so they don't have to be subjected to a major studio that's going to take the bulk of it, and you got to earn your way up. It's like, no, if it's good, I could put this out there somehow, maybe protect it. I don't know how.
Right.
And then people watch it or pay me $1 to watch, whatever,
Again, we were talking about before, the Patreon, right? People,
perfect example.
People want to pay for certain extra bonuses. But again, like if I'm, people like Tarantino or Kevin Smith, they got discovered in pretty unique ways. Like I think they won competitions or whatever it was. I don't know. I could be wrong about that. But the traditional path of getting famous in Hollywood, going back to screenwriters or to actors, is really grinding and working your way up, unless it's like they find you on the street and, oh my God, this person's a star. I don't really think that happens anymore. So is this a way for studios, even directors, to get a more direct access to up and coming writers or filmmakers or whatever it is? Whereas if I don't have the budget to do a short film, I can do a 3-minute AI created reel basically. And I can pitch it to these studios and I can put it for people to watch. Again, in a controlled environment where the actor and the actors have approved it. And like in this scenario, everything is buttoned up legally. Everyone's on board. Everyone's cool with it. It's just the way we want to do it.
You could have Pacino, De Niro, whatever, all these people.
People like making stuff. they like interacting with it. We call it the creator economy. A buddy of mine who's a lawyer that I know through Twitter is talks about the creator economy all the time, and he writes about it all the time. It's a growing economy. We talked about TikTok, YouTube. A lot of stars then branch over and start acting in movies because they become famous.
So there are millions of people out there creating content. So
if I do like The Godfather Part 4, which is based in 3500, AD, where it's a futuristic Godfather. It's the great-great-great-great-grandson of Marlon Brando's character, but it's good, and a studio and people really watch it, and I make a little bit of money off of it. Why can't I then go to a studio and get discovered and be the writer of this? I'm an eternal optimist. I'm always going to try to find the positive in things. It's just who I am as an individual. So I think it's a really important time right now. And we all have a voice in this. If we think it's not right for studios to take it without permission and then do whatever they want with it, which I don't think most people would agree that that's an okay thing to do, in my opinion. I don't know that that's what they're trying to do. Maybe it is. I don't know. We're not at the negotiating table. But if you can leverage it in unique ways, then maybe we can create more of a back and forth between the consumer of the content and the creators of the content, in theory. And people can benefit even monetarily in a unique way. I don't mean to make everything about crypto, but you were saying before about the deep fakes.
Sure.
How are we going to protect against knowing who's what? In theory, you can leverage blockchain technology, and if I'm a famous person or if I'm a politician, I can have my private smart contract where if I'm officially making a statement or if I'm officially doing something, it's then linked to my smart contract, and then it's locked on the blockchain. So
you could click to watch it.
Correct.
It cannot be changed, modified.
Correct. And when something gets created on the internet, if it doesn't have that tag or that token ID, and I can't link it back to the original, then maybe I should. Hey, maybe this famous person didn't actually say this. Maybe it's a deep fake. I don't know that the technology is there yet. I don't know how that. I'm not smart enough to figure out how to make that work. Although I'd be happy to consult on anyone who'd love to figure it out. But
I love it.
But it's true though. Like the technology is going to develop. Like we will. Maybe it's a digital watermark. Maybe it's a sound watermark. Maybe I don't know what it's going to be. But we do need these solutions because deepfakes are coming. They're going to get worse.
Oh yeah.
They're going to be impossible to discern. So that's not. It's absolutely a valid. Just because I'm focusing on the positive doesn't mean these negative concerns aren't there. They're there, and we have to deal with it. But the technology is not going to go away.
No, it's too late. Pandora's box been open, and so how do we manage it at this point and mitigate any kind of bad effects that come out of it?
And I'd like to make a plea to attorneys generally. I know that I deal with art and a lot of entertainment stuff, so it's something I think about a lot. But I do think if people can understand AI generally, these newer Web3 technologies that kind of all link together generally, then we can have an influence on how it develops going forward with the contracts that we develop. How does standards become a standard? Everyone starts to do it. Someone comes up with the idea, they tell somebody else, and it spreads. And then maybe it gets codified, or it's not codified, but it's so prevalent that that's just the way that it's done. We have the ability as attorneys and regular citizens as well to learn about this stuff and engage in these kinds of conversations to try to make it better. And try to make it so it's not some overlord, corporate, evil 1984 company taking our likenesses and doing whatever they want with it.
Sure.
I
mean, that's the fear, right?
Well, that's the Black Mirror episode from the new season. Joan is awful. You sign a terms of service, and it says we can basically listen to your day to day and make a TV show based on you that shows your day to day. And then I think in that episode they had Salma Hayek was the AI actor. She wasn't actually acting in the show. She was an AI generated character because she signed away in a contract her rights. I'm maybe spoiler alert. I don't know. Spoiler alert. But you can see the negative direction that it could go.
Sure.
But if enough people stand up and work together, maybe we can stop it from doing that and figure out unique ways to leverage it for a positive thing.
So my takeaway as we close this out, because I think we can go on forever and ever,
oh, yeah.
is anyone creating something, make sure, or any kind of artist or entertainer, make sure you have an attorney. And really
yes.
Make sure you go through that contract very carefully.
Yes. And try to – it's tough because again, if I'm a lawyer representing the company or the producer, I want it to be broader just so that I don't get sued for something that's innocuous.
Right.
I didn't mean to step outside of it, and it's
Sure.
kind of necessary to get it done, but it's – So it kind of goes both ways.
It's a push and pull from both sides.
It's a push and pull. But yeah, definitely, especially with this new stuff going forward, be weary of licensing your AI to anybody. I'm not saying don't do it, but just be careful with how you do it. Because once your point, Pandora's box is open, once it's out there in the universe and you've given your rights away, the ability to get it back is very difficult.
I mean, it's your visual and vocal DNA.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, it's true.
I've copyrighted that.
It'd be a trademark.
And other than that, I think, try to embrace it and find positive ways to use it because it's not going away. So how can we leverage, to use your verb there, how can we leverage AI to really work for us?
That's what I think. I mean, I know we were talking more so about the screenwriters and the actors and all that kind of stuff. What if I'm an actor, not to make it dark, who's locked in or is quadriplegic, but I can still move my face and I can still speak? Does it open up more?
You did go dark.
I did. I went down. I did. But but there are people going through that scenario.
Sure.
And their ability to create is semi-limited based on their physical ailments. If I can create new art with AI, or maybe I can even become a face. You can take my face and my acting skills and put it on a body that allows me to act as other characters.
Wow.
Again, so these are just random spitball ideas that I'm coming up with on the spot, but you can see that there are positivity things there. I hope that the writer strike comes out, and I think it's writers and SAG, so it's both. I hope that it comes out in a positive scenario where everyone's happy with it. They're fighting about a lot of other stuff too. It's not just the AI stuff, but the AI has taken up a lot of the wind in the room.
Sure.
Or the air in the room, so to speak.
Well, my final thoughts are, if you don't like your hands, you can use George Costanza's
I was going to make the side note. I knew that's what you were going to say. I was going to say the same thing.
Costanza's hands to replace yours, on your video.
Oh, that's an interesting. You can, in theory, there's a fear here. You can do an AI Frankenstein actor where you're taking the face of one actor, the hair of another actor, the voice of another actor, and creating.
Give myself some hair.
Absolutely.
Like Brad Pitt. Cool.
Absolutely. That should be the thumbnail image of this video. Should be
Costanza
AI.
hands, Brad Pitt hair.
Brad Pitt hair. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you, my friend. I've had a blast, and I wish we could go on forever, but at this point, I think I'm actually getting a little tired.
That's for the Patreon.
Yeah.
That's for the
Patreon.
That's for the Patreon.
All right.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks so much for having me, guys. Yep.